Welcome to the City of Malden City Council meeting on Monday, May the 18th at 7 p.m. I welcome you to this.
Just turn the volume down.
I did, and it still did it.
Not the mic, the speaker.
We're still learning this technology. Yep. Next stuff. Anyway, we're back at our regular council meeting in chambers tonight. Is Ms. King, Mr. Reynolds, and myself, Mayor Merritt. Via webinar is Mr. Matney, Ms. Kuznar. I do not believe Mr. Blackfield he's on vacation. Also, we have our city administrator, Mr. Madden, and our recreation director, Mr. Comalander in chambers, and acting fire chief in the hall and change it, along with our moderator, Sergeant McCoy. Also, we have various department heads that are attending remotely, along with our city attorney.
I'm gonna wait till it gets down close to that item.
So as you can tell, we're all still learning our computers and that. So until this is the opportunity to speak, please keep your microphone muted. When it is your chance or you get an opportunity or want to speak, be sure to speak slowly, distinctly, and state your name and your address. In our public comment tonight, we've had no email notices to our city clerk, Ms. Miller, but we'll still allow the opportunity for public comment when we get to that section, and I'll let you know there if you would like to speak there, and we'll hold that to probably 3 minutes because we have a quite lengthy agenda tonight. After our call to order, first thing of business would be our invocation. That would be C5, which Mr. Black is not here. Would anyone like to volunteer for that? If not, I'll be glad to do it in the kind of thing. So those who choose to, bow with me, please. Gracious Heavenly Father, I call at this time, first and foremost, always acknowledge you as the grantor and giver of all life and all things. Lord, I know right now we're going through a very trying time, an unsettling time, a undocumented time. We just don't fully understand what's upon us and how to approach it. Lord, through your guidance, I pray you will give us the wisdom and discernment and the abilities to approach this and know that you have us in your hands. Lord, we lift up to you those that are still out on the front line, our first responders, our public safety employees, our police, our fire, and all those that are essential that are still working and have to be in the public. Protect them, O Lord, and give them strength and good health, I pray. Lord, for tonight, we've got a lengthy agenda ahead of us, and I pray for your wisdom and discernment to each and every one of us, that we make those decisions that is best for the overall city of Malden, and continue to move us forward as our staff continues with their departments and doing the business of the city. We all continue there. Lord, be with each and every one of us. This I pray in our Son, Jesus Christ, most holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I would invite those that could to stand and find the nearest flag. And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Again, I think I probably got the welcome ahead of everything else. We appreciate you attending tonight, whether it's through the virtual sessions or through the staff that was able to make it here into chambers, and we'll proceed with that. Proclamations and presentations, I don't believe we have any. We have all action items tonight. I will go with roll call, starting with seat 1 and proceeding to seat 6. For any votes that need to be taken, as well as motions and seconds. First item of business is reading approval of minutes for our city council meeting of April the 20th, 2020. The pleasure of the council. I'll start here in-house first, and we'll do that. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve as submitted.
Ms. King, got a motion to approve as submitted.
Second.
There's a second by Mr. Reynolds in chambers. Is there any discussions? Seat one, Mr. Matney.
Aye.
Discussion phase at this point.
No, I have nothing to discuss. I was waiting to vote.
Okay, sorry. I was giving everybody an opportunity for discussion. Ms. King's none, Mr. Reynolds none, Ms. Kuzma.
I have no discussion.
All right. We'll vote. Those in favor of accepting the minutes as submitted, say aye. Mr. Matney,
Aye.
Ms. King,
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma,
Aye.
and the mayor votes aye. So the minutes are approved as submitted. All right. Next item on the agenda is our public comment. I went over that. There are no one who has submitted questions or signed up, but we'll pause at this moment. If they can unmute their own mics, and start to record. Okay, so if you have a comment you'd like to make, usually the first public comment session is for any item on the agenda tonight. So if you have a comment, I'll welcome that to you. Just turn your mic on, and the first one I hear and recognize, then you state your name and your address. Any comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. There'll be another opportunity toward the end of our session tonight for additional public comment. So if you think of some, jot them down, and when we get to that, we'll recognize that section again. At this time, we have a report from our city administrator, Mr. Matt.
Mayor and members of council, at this time, I do not have a report, but I would like to ask Ms. Pat Pomeroy over the Malden Chamber to provide any comments if she does, if she has any.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, the chamber, we're doing well. I mean, we are like everyone else. We're trying to get through some very troubling times, but I'm working a lot from home because no one can come into the building. But I'm taking a lot of calls, and I think because of what's going on, we're getting a lot of people that want to relocate to our area. So I'm sending out a lot of relocation packets. From various cities. So, and we did do a food drive a few weeks ago. And Mayor, thank you for coming and helping us. We had 2 truckloads full of food, and then we had a $400 donation given to us. So everything went to the Center for Community Service. And when I walked into their pantry and I saw they had nothing, it just was really nice that we could do that. And I know the next food drive is going to be our Leadership Golden Strip. And here, I think you're working on that right now too.
Correct.
Yes. So other than that, I'm just excited about getting back to work. It's going to be like starting over again, but I'm up for the task. So I think we'll be doing fine. Thank you. Any questions? No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pomeroy. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Thank you, Pat. Report from our standing committees, finance and policy, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We held earlier at 6 o'clock our Malden 2021 budget hearing. There were no questions or comments from the public on it. I took that as a strong budget. It was thoughtful, presented well, and lots of discussion publicly about it. So that hearing was scheduled and proceed within this agenda to move forward with the ordinance for 2021. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Public safety, Ms. King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just continued thanks to our public safety and public works staff for keeping our city running during these difficult times. I know I said it last month, but I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart, and I feel like the majority or all of us here feel the same way. So please share that with your staff. And as the rest of the staff starts to slowly come back, we look forward to getting the city reopened and back to what we all call normal soon. I'd also like to take the opportunity to wish our finance director, Ms. Holly Abercrombie, a happy birthday. We spend many of my birthdays either here or in budget meetings. So welcome to the party, Holly. Hope you enjoyed your day. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King. Public Works, as mayor, I am acting chairman of that committee, and so all I've got is a shout out to our Public Works department. What a phenomenal group of men and women who stepped up in difficult times, and we haven't missed a beat with sanitation and garbage and collection and all that, and all the men and women who are riding on the back of the truck. It's not accustomed to it. Thank you, and hold on tight. Our new truck is doing well. I think that we're hearing good feedback on it. Our brush pickup has been quite extensive over the last few weeks due to the storms we had come through there. So again, kudos to the entire workforce there in Public Works. Certainly do appreciate you there in a special way during this time. That's all I have. Mr. Matney, Economic Planning Development, anything?
No report this evening, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Matney. Building code is Ms. Kuznar.
Well, I just want to thank our business and development department for continuing to help the businesses with their permits and just to keep things moving through this coronavirus and the time that a lot of businesses are not working right now. So we've still got construction going on. So I thank the building department for keeping that going.
Thank you, Ms. Kuznar. And Recreation, Mr. Black's not here, so Mr. Reynolds is filling in.
Mr. Mayor, I have nothing to report other than it'll be good to get all the departments opened up at some point really soon and see the sports center full and the fields full. And I think the department as a whole is chomping at the bit to get outside. So we appreciate what they've been doing to prepare for that. And I look forward to getting that open. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. That would conclude our standing committees and for departments. Our next item is unfinished business. Item A is the consideration and action on Brookbend Road. That's coming from the PW committee. I'll handle that as acting chair right now. Coming from the PW committee to full council, there are no available resources from the property owner at 136 Brookbend Road to help with the current issue with stormwater runoff from the streets and surrounding the streets. It goes to a culvert that goes through an easement on her property that has collapsed. The best staff can do is to pursue a new easement from the next door property owners and install a new stormwater drainage pipe there that gets the road runoff through that neighborhood down into ultimately, which is Gilbert Creek there. So we'd install a new drainage pipe there and block off the existing line. So that is an item for us to consider for action tonight. I move we proceed with the staff's recommendation plans for a new drainage location and a not to exceed cost of $5,900. Does council consider a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Second from Ms. King. It's now open for discussion. If there are any discussion, I will review the screen if anybody's waving. Mr. Matthew, I don't see anything. Any comment, Ms. King?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. As I sit on this committee, and I voiced this a few weeks ago, I know agreed to send this out to council for us to discuss and to try to move forward with it with a solution of the we were hoping that the homeowner would be able to pay for the portion to fill that drain pipe on her property. As stated earlier, the property owner came back and said that they were unable to do that. I am hesitant to spend taxpayer dollars on that filling of that drain, simply because our ordinance states that we do not go on private property. I'm not opposed of rerouting to solve her problem. So, you know, I would hate to do one without the other, but I just, until we have further means to fund stormwater, and I know we have a lot of conversations just in the last couple of weeks on different things that we could do to address these issues. I'm just hesitant to move forward with the entire $5,800+ project.
Thank you, Ms. King. Any additional comments, Mr. Reynolds? And then Ms. Kuzma, any comment? Yes, Ms. Kuzma.
Well, I think part of what I have is yes, we should fix what we need to fix. But when we have had other citizens where we've gone in and helped them to make repairs to the stormwater issues, they've been willing to come forward with, you know, whatever cost they should. So, you know, is it something that we should ask her to, you know, we will pay for this, but we'll need for you to pay for this, you know, other piece of it. That's my concern.
Thank you, Ms. Kuzma. Back to
Mayor?
the one comment that I have, I had to note here, I've got to read it, and talking with our PW director today, there is no fund or material in this that will be used to correct Ms. Federline's property. So the only thing that would be used would be the full field that has to be put in, the pipe to seal the access from the water coming on the backside of the property, coming down the hill from the right of way, and to seal the catch basin coming off the street, so there was no water flowing out through that open ditch or the line that would be in the Federline's still under her property. So there's nothing in here that would be spent to improve her property as a private property owner. So that's kind of the gist that we got from Mr. Toomey today, that we're not actually improving these private properties, owners' property. So that was that explanation. That may help, it may not.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's been one of my concerns as we look at these issues across the city, is when does the city make sure that we're improving only what is our responsibility? And while we're still trying to determine and map out and have protocols on what our responsibilities are, I would have a lot of concern with doing flowable fill in the pipe that was on Ms. Federline's property, simply because that was not there. We would then be improving the property. So I'm assuming, making sure I understand, if Mr. Freeman would speak up to that for public record, so that we can, so I can, from my understanding, make sure I'm understanding what the process will be and what the process will be, so that we're not improving Ms. Federline's property.
Mr. Freeman?
The process, as we discussed earlier, would be to reroute the pipe onto a property easement obtained from Mr. Ireland. And we would leave the pipe on Miss Federline's property untouched.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. That's been my giant concern from all of this. I appreciate you addressing that on the public forum.
Reynolds. Back to any comment, Mr. McNeil?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Ms. King, and also with Mr. Reynolds. I think we need to be very careful, when it comes to doing work off of the public space and into private property. I think anytime we start getting into private property, we begin to deal with private property issues. And I don't think that there are a lot of folks in Malden who want the city of Malden determining what they can and can't do with and around their property. And so I think that it kind of goes both ways. We can't then step on somebody's property to do improvements without making some additional requirements. I have no problem doing the reroute for a new easement. But if we're going to be sealing off access to the original pipe, Mr. Fleeman, that's going to be done in the public space, correct? That's not going to be done on her property.
We would be disconnecting the pipe from the catch basin on the street and rerouting it from that point. The collapsing corrugated pipe on her property would just remain in place. We're not going to dig it out. We're not going to seal it. It was going to remain in place.
Okay. That helps me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, with that, I have no issues.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Ms. King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Fleeman, for that explanation, as I do not recall that was the conversation I know we discussed that a couple of weeks ago in committee. However, I did not realize that this proposal did not include filling the pipe on the public property, on private property. So thank you for the explanation. My only other question is, do we have any idea on attorney fees? Because I see in here that the 5,800 does not include those fees.
If I may, Ms. King, can I chime in on fees? So
Yes, sir.
the attorney fees will be taken out the separate line item. That's an hourly charge that legal counsel charges the city for. Those are not that much in that it's essentially preparing a document and for review by Mr. Ireland and execution by Mr. Ireland, and then being recorded. So it's not included in the cost that you have before you, but it will be accounted for through the separate line item that the city already has in its budget.
Perfect. Thank you. Any further questions?
Thank you, Ms. King. Back to you, Mr. Reynolds. Question, should I finish the rotation? Ms. Kuzma, no additional comments, questions? You're muted, I believe.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kuzma. I have a call for the question if we're all ready to vote at this time. Seeing nodding of the heads, so assume we are. So the motion before us is to proceed with the staff's plan for a new drainage location, redirecting to with the acquisition of an easement from the next door property of Mr. Ireland, and to pipe the stormwater down to there with a new direction to roll out into Gilbert Creek with a not to exceed cost of $5,900. All those in favor of the motion say aye. We'll do the roll call. Mr. Matt.
Aye.
Ms. King.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Ms. Kuznar.
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. So 5-0 to proceed with the recommendation from staff. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is consideration action on annexation of 1215 East Butler Road. Carolina Building Codes. This is the second reading. Ms. Kuzma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second reading for the annexation of 1215 East Butler Road into the Malden city limits. All utilities are available, including water and sewer. An existing metro sewer line runs in front of this property. This tract is currently located in the Malden Fire Service District. The current zoning is C1 in the county, and the property owner has requested S1 zoning in the city of Malden upon annexation. S1 zoning is appropriate and supports this designation in the comprehensive plan. The applicant is planning to construct a Caliber Collision auto body repair shop with an upgraded facade on approximately 2.6 acre portion of this tract. And it's directly adjacent to an existing Dollar General store. The property size is approximately 7.5 acres. Staff is not aware of any immediate development plans for the remaining 4.88 acre portion of this tract. The annexation of this tract will result in a net financial benefit to the city of Malden. The city stands to receive revenues that will exceed the cost of providing services to this tract through the collection of commercial property tax and annual business license fees. So at this time, I make a motion to annex 1215 East Butler Road into the city of Malden with a zoning of S1 on this second reading.
Motion from Ms. Kuzma, is there a second? And a second from Ms. King. Any discussions on this item? Matt, none. Reynolds? None. I have none. Ready for the vote? All those in favor of the annexation of 1215 East Butler Road with the zoning of S1 on second reading, say aye. Mr. Matthew?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye, so it carries 5. Thank you. Seek consideration and action on the Kittle Planning Commission term limits, also from Ms. Kuzma, building codes. Ms. Kuzma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second reading for the consideration to repeal the Planning Commission term limits. In 2002, the city of Malden adopted a provision regarding the Planning Commission that states no person shall be eligible for more than 2 consecutive terms. The city currently has some great volunteers serving on the Planning Commission. 2 are currently serving their second term, which is set to expire on June 30th, 2020. Other Malden boards and commissions do not have term limits, nor are term limits prescribed by the South Carolina Code of Laws. Staff is not aware of other communities which place term limits on volunteers. Neither Greenville, Simpsonville, nor Greer place term limits on members of boards and commissions. A repeal of this provision would not automatically reappoint Planning Commission members upon expiration of their term, but would allow them to be eligible to be reappointed. So on that, I make a motion on this second reading to repeal the provision regarding term limits of the Planning Commission.
Motion from Ms. Kuzma. Is there a second?
Second from Matney.
Okay, Cindy, Ms. King, and Mr. Matney, take your pick. Any discussion? Seeing nothing from Mr. Matney, Ms. King, Reynolds, Ms. Kuzma made the motion, so I guess we'll go from there. I have nothing. We're ready to vote. All those in favor of the repeal of the Planning Commission term limits as laid out by Ms. Kuzma on this is second reading. All those in favor say aye. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye, so 5-0. Carries. Okay, that's the end of our new, all unfinished business. So now we'll move into new business. 8A, consideration and action this would require 2 readings also, I believe. So, we're back to you, Ms. Kuznar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is first reading of the construction noise standards. The current ordinance allows construction noise from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Malden is growing and some new construction is very close to residential neighborhoods. The Building Codes Committee asked staff to explore alternative regulations pertaining to construction noise. At the April 6, 2020 Building Codes Committee meeting, some interest was expressed for adjusting to the City of Greenville standards. Following that meeting, staff discussed this with Mr. Day, the president of the Greenville Home Builders Association. He had no concerns with Malden adjusting its restrictions on construction noise beginning at 9 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. This pertains to both domestic and commercial machinery and power tools. It does not mean construction work that is quiet, such as painting inside or other quiet work indoors, has to end at 9 p.m. Emergency work, such as broken water mains, etc., will not be affected by this ordinance. I make a motion on this first reading to amend the City of Malden's noise ordinance to restrict noise disturbances from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Motion for Ms. Kuznar to modify this ordinance for 9 p.m. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Ms. King. Any discussion? Robin again, Mr. McNamee. Good. Ms. King? That's good. That's good. All those in favor say aye. Mr. McNamee?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Kuznar?
Aye.
And the mayor votes aye. So 5-0. Motion carries on the first reading to modify the noise ordinance. Next item, consideration on AT&T small wireless facility request also has an ordinance attached to it, so this would be first reading of the reading request. Again, Ms. Kuznar, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. AT&T is requesting to install a small cell wireless facility consisting of 5G technology at the corner of Cary Street and West Butler, which is next to the Chick-fil-A. They are proposing to install a 32 to 34 foot metal stealth pole. The 5G antenna will be concealed in a canister located at the top of the pole, and the associated cables and wires will be similarly concealed inside the pole. So at this time, I make a motion to allow AT&T to erect one 32 to 34 foot metal stealth pole and 5G antenna at the corner of Cary Street and West Butler Road.
Second from Matney.
I got a second from Mr. Matney on that. And I referred to the page 45 that this is an ordinance to authorize a license agreement. That's why we have 2 readings. So we can't consider the license agreement before we do the ordinance. I think I'm correct on that, Mr. Hughes. You okay with that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. It should be by ordinance, 2 readings.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so this is first reading then. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay. So, all right. All right, so I make a motion to allow AT&T to erect the pole and antenna at the corner of Cary Street and West Butler on first reading.
As I understand, that was your motion, and Mr. McNamee seconded. So we're good to go there with the ordinance. It would authorize on second reading, it would approve the signing of the license. So any discussion concerning this ordinance? Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We already have some agreements with other cell phone providers, correct? This will be our first one.
This is our first one on 5G technology, which is entirely different, as my understanding.
Okay.
I'll refer to staff. To discuss it, but
No, I think that's correct.
Okay.
And it's typically handled on a case-by-case basis. I think this is just prior to council taking on the bigger discussion on how it wants its ordinance to look for 5G.
Thank you, Mr. Pat.
Mr. Reynolds. Any other discussion? Seeing none, how do you keep saying all those in favor, say aye, and call you out? How would you vote? Mr. Matthew?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. So 5-0 to approve on first reading of ordinance for a potential license agreement with AT&T concerning 5G small wireless facilities. Next item is 8C. Consideration action authorization disposal of surplus. Oh, we're different. Ms. King?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, pages 47, 48 in your packet, we have, the fire department has identified some equipment and vehicles that are old, that they deem to be out of service and do not have any use for the equipment and vehicles and do not plan to use these in the future. Given the fact that the equipment has an estimated value of over $15,000 per city policy, city council has to approve the sale of the surplus or the old equipment. So any revenues from the sale of the equipment will be added to the capital projects fund. So this time I'd like to make the motion to approve the sale of old, damaged, surplus equipment and vehicles from the fire department within the next 60 days.
Thank you, Mr. King. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Kuzma? Thank you. All right, any discussion concerning this motion? Mr. Matney? Good. King, good. Mr. Reynolds? Ms. Kuzma, good?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm good. All those in favor say aye. Mr. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma?
Aye.
The mayor votes aye, so 5-0 to proceed with the disposal of surplus equipment. Fire department. Ms. King?
Thank you.
Item D, consideration action on the door at the sports center walking track. It's come out of recreation. That would be Mr. Black, who's not here. So Mr. Reynolds is gracious to consent to fill in and present this item. To you, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to do my best, and Mr. Black. What you have before you is a request from staff on upgrading access point on the fitness floor and the stairwell. They sent out an RFP for adding a door to limit access to the upstairs walking track, downstairs track, where some folks are able to pay for a walking trail membership, but also use the equipment in the gym. So staff was looking at options as to way to address that issue. Mr. Black will make my motion based on Mr. Black's opinion on this item, and then we got that discussion. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the bid for $8,430 to install a door in the upstairs sports center complex.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Is there a second? For the second discussion, I'll second it, just to get it out there. We'll open it up for discussion on that. So we'll start seat one, Mr. Magnet. Good. Ms. King?
Discussion. Yes, sir. I have some questions.
Okay.
So my first question, I guess, would be for Mr. Cumlander to probably address. Has staff talked to the members who are supposedly violating the scope of their membership? I just think the cost of installing a door at the tune of $8,400 is a little excessive if we haven't taken other measures prior to. Thank you, Mr. Carmine.
Yes, Ms. King, I think what they have done, they can't pinpoint exactly who the folks are coming down. I think it's a small percentage. I had a brief conversation with the Sports Center manager, Amanda Duffy, and she said it seemed that it has trimmed down from, we were at our peak. Usually the rough months are January and February when we have basketball. I think we have a little bit of that problem. Just because we have such a full house when we're basketball games, and then, you know, people will walk in. I don't think it's per se basketball parents or kids who want to do that. I think it's just some people just challenging to see what they can do. I think we have some issues early in the mornings. Exercise classes are going on. People coming downstairs. To answer your question, I think it's gotten a little bit better, but to pinpoint it fully, I mean, the door definitely helped. Answer your question.
Yes, sir, it does. I just, not knowing the volume, I don't attend the sports center in the morning, so I don't know how many folks are there. But I would just like to make the suggestion that we monitor this and address these members who may be going from the walking trail down to the floor, and that's not allowing their membership, and perhaps explain that to them and see if that will solve the problem. If we're truly thinking it is a small number, which I do think it's a small number. I understand that your membership card would be used to access the door. Say if I were on the walking trail and needed to get downstairs and wanted to go the back way versus through the lobby, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, the mayor asked me that question, and so I went back on my notes. And so we can do it one of two things, is we can go back and use your access card to the locker room and tie that in with the locker room access key to the back steps, or we do another card, which I'm not in agreement with, because then you're gonna be carrying around 3 cards with you. You got your card that you scan when you get in the front, then you scan a card to get in the locker room, then you're gonna scan a card to get in the back door. So, to answer your question, I think if you tie it in with the other access key, if I remember correctly, you cannot, if you have just a walking pass, you're not able to use the showers and locker rooms. It's full membership to have access to the locker rooms and shower. It's changed a couple times, so to answer your question, going back, you know, it is a small number probably, but you know, I think what's got some folks kind of upset is folks that do pay full membership, they're down there working out, and they see somebody walking, and so if it's a small percentage, I can't tell you if it's 10, 20, because we don't really have anybody back there. When we opened up the sports center with our new policy in place, we're going to have more folks back in the back wiping stuff down so we can monitor it better. If that helps, and we can table this, or we can move forward, whatever the council chooses to do.
I appreciate that, Mr. Cumberland and Mr. Mayor. I would just I have full confidence that our sports center staff has the capabilities to monitor this situation prior to the city paying to put a door up. And for me, my card is hanging on the pegboard at the front lobby behind the desk. So if I would just hate to inconvenience those that are following the rules for a few folks who aren't following the rules prior to trying to address it in a way. Just my thoughts. So I appreciate your feedback.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, based on the discussions here, rather and well, as we look at the agenda and how many items are on the agenda, let's get this item buttoned up back in committee. So I'd like to retract my motion to approve it and have this sent back to committee.
I'm willing to retract my second. We will retract the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, everybody. Mr. Reynolds is withdrawing his motion and would like to make a new recommendation.
I'd like to make a motion to send this back to the committee for further discussion, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Second on that one.
Second from Matney.
We second it. The new motion is to send this back to the Recreation Committee for further vetting. And second, if you will. Any discussion on that? Ms. King, no. Ms. Kuznar? No other discussion? I have none, so ready for a vote. All those in favor of sending this back? Vote. Next, we vote to go back to the committee. We do it in, can't go along with that. All those in favor, aye. Mr. Matt?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Kuznar? And I vote aye. So 5-0 to refer this matter back to the Recreation Committee for vetting process. The next item on agenda, 8E, is consideration of action request to move funds to street capital for a skid steer coming out of Public Works. So as acting chair of that committee, I'll take this one. The PW committee forwarded full council consideration, requesting authorization to move a portion of funds generated from the sale of old and damaged equipment from the capital project fund to the budget line item 431-00970 for the capital purchase of a skid steer. The need for a skid steer to be maintained by the street department would allow additional work to be performed on construction sites, and this particular version would allow for various attachments to be purchased to maximize its usefulness in the future. Attachments such as the asphalt milling machine, a bush hog, a vibrator roller, and a concrete mixer. Those are projects that we could see our city being better able to do with proper equipment in this particular skid steer. So we're asking for the transfer of up to $64,000 from the capital project fund to the capital line item 970 for the purchase of the skid steer to be maintained by the street department. That is a form of a motion for me.
Second.
And a second from Ms. King. Any discussion on this? Mr. Matthew? None.
None.
Mr. Reynolds? Ms. Kuznar?
Aye.
None? Okay, I have no discussion. Ready for a vote on that? All those in favor say aye. Mr. Matney?
Aye.
King?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds? Aye. Ms. Kuznar?
Aye.
And Mayor votes aye. So it carries majority vote to proceed, staff to proceed with that transfer and purchase. Okay, next item 8H. Yeah, there we're going to kind of keep it. Consideration of action on employee vacation. This is coming out of finance policy and HR. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, in this situation, we've got a number of employees whose vacation hours get affected when the rollover for the cutoff for being able to use their vacation hours happens, and that is June 30th. So what the staff is asked to do, because there are three main departments affected by this: that's police, fire, as well as public works. These guys have been working so much that they've not been able to take their vacation hours. So in an effort to try to save the folks who would lose hours based on not having the ability to take them because they're considered essential to the city, and I'd like to make a motion that we roll back the vacation policy deadline for employees to take vacation hours that are the maximum, to bump that to today. It is normally ending June 30th, and we want to move that out to October 1st. I'm sorry, July 1st. Move that out to October 1st for the year 2021, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Ms. King. Any discussions on the motion to extend the deadline, move the deadline for vacation rollover cutoff from July the 1st to October 1st? Mr. Matney?
No, Mayor.
Ms. King, Mr. Reynolds, no. Ms. Kuznar?
No discussion.
Okay, none for me. All those in favor of the motion as presented, say aye. Mr. Matney?
Aye.
King,
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma,
Aye.
the mayor votes aye. So 5-0 to allow HOA.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Item 8G, again, a budget amendment, ordinance back to finance, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, there have been various expenditures and projects and grants throughout the year that council has approved, but what we'd like to do now is make an amendment to have this, we have a happy book at the end of the year. So what I'd like to do is make a request, I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget amendment for year 20, the budget year that we're in. If you look in your packet, you'll find that there are revenues approved in here at 182,517.46, and expenditures at $1,037,437.89. So I would like to make a motion that we approve the budget amendment on first reading.
I have a motion on first reading for a budget amendment. Second. Second from Ms. King. Any discussion? Maddie? None? Ms. King? Reynolds?
I appreciate you guys. I believe I made 2 motions in there. I appreciate you guys understanding what I'm saying. Thank you.
I'll repeat it also. Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Ms. Kuzma?
No discussion.
No discussion and none from me. All right, the motion before us on first reading is a proposed budget amendment for fiscal year 2020 in the amounts as stated by Mr. Reynolds and contained in the packet on page 54 and 55, and the ordinance starts on 56. It is an ordinance that does require 2 readings. So this is a motion on first reading. So all those in favor, aye. Mr. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. So 5-0 for first reading on the budget amendment ordinance for fiscal year 2020. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a city phone system upgrade. Also came up the finance committee. Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So apparently DC3 has a new phone system they've been rolling out to their customers, and they're approaching current customers with the idea of trying to upgrade their systems. Staff reviewed the 2 options. There's an option that will save the city roughly $100 a month, which is option 1. The other option is to upgrade and renew the agreement with DC3 for 60 months. That will save the city $300 a month right now. But what staff is recommending, and I agree with, is to have the first option and then have our phone system go back out for bid when this contract expires. So I'd like to make a motion that we make sure I got all that right. Okay. That we take staff's recommendation of option 1 for the phone system with DC3.
I have a motion before us, Mr. Reynolds. Do I have a second? Second from Mr. King. Any discussion? Matney?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. King? None? Reynolds, none. Ms. Kuzma? Discussion.
Sorry. No, sir, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any.
Okay, Mr. Matney.
Mayor, members of council, if I can just add, just to clarify one quick thing. In committee, we talked about the date that the contract expires, that we have the DC3. And in committee, it was mentioned that it was November 2021. After going back through and looking at the change order for option 1, that actual expiration date is October 31st, 2021. So just want to make sure.
Thank you, Mr. Matt, for that clarification.
All right, hearing no other discussion, then the motion for us for vote is to accept staff's recommendation of proceeding with option one of reviewing extending the phone system contract for 1 year from BC3 as quoted. All those in favor, aye. Mr. Matney?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Kuznar?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. So motion carries to extend for 1 year option one for BC3. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. G, consideration on FOIA policy, back to financing policy, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we adopt the resolution for the FOIA policy that is in our packet.
Mr. Reynolds to adopt the FOIA policy as submitted in our packet.
Second.
Second from Ms. King. Any discussion? Madam?
Thank you, Mayor. It's not that I'm completely opposed to this, but there's a lot of overkill here. This is, to me, this is trying to kill a fly with a sledgehammer. Essentially, what this does is completely and totally rehash the code section that deals with FOIA. So anytime there's going to be a change in the state code, we've got to make sure that we're on top of it to go in and change a comma or change a word or change a line. It seems to me that the simpler thing would have just been to have the ordinance that establishes the rate schedule and the pieces that are not necessarily addressed in the state code section that are left for the cities to do for their own policies. I'll vote for it, but just understand there's potentially more work here to try and keep up with that needs to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Matney. Ms. King?
No discussion, thank you.
Discussion, Mr. Reynolds? Ms. Kuznar?
Sorry. I just have a question for Mr. Hughes. Is this something that we're going to have to be watchful for and change every time there's something with the state codes?
Well, certainly if the state law changes regarding any type of FOIA law, then yes, we will have to apply state law as it reads. State law would preempt anything the city's ordinance does, with the exception of the fee schedule.
Okay. So I guess I didn't know how much different this is from state law.
It's not. It's, as Mr. Matney did point out, it captures the requirements of the state FOIA law, incorporates it into our own ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Kuznar. Mr. Hughes, the question I have is on our agenda, this refers to FOIA policy and ordinance requiring 2 readings. I am not finding any reference to an ordinance. Or is this just a resolution, which would only require 1 reading? Did I miss it? Somebody see it?
I had any resolutions.
I'm always seeing a resolution as part of our policy. Not resolution, so there's no ordinance. So this only requires 1 reading. So any additional discussion? Matney, Ms. King, Mr. Reynolds, none, Ms. Kuzma, no other discussion. Not seeing any, I don't have any. We're ready for a vote to approve the resolution. The related FOIA policy to be incorporated into our Transportation. It's a lot. So all those in favor, aye. Mr. Matney,
Aye.
Ms. King,
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma,
Aye.
I vote aye. So the motion to adopt the resolution is approved. Item consideration on action of emergency ordinance. Back to the finance and policy, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A little background, as you know, we had a special call emergency council meeting to approve an ordinance among a lot of other provisions that waive late fees associated with city business license permits through May 23rd. Obviously, May 23rd is coming up, and given that we're still not out of this, and tax filing extensions implemented for the state and federal taxes, this is city staff as well as city trying to accommodate the businesses that are still trying to figure this COVID situation out. So I'd like to make a motion that we pass the ordinance waiving late fees associated with the city business license permits through June 30th, 2020.
Yeah, have a motion, do I have a second?
Second, Matney.
Got you.
Mr. Matney, received by for Michael seconds. Good there. Any discussion on this? Let's see any hands raised on this team. Good. Mr. Reynolds, good. Ms. Kuzma, good.
I'm good, thank you.
All right, this is a change to an ordinance. It is an emergency ordinance that we would only allow for, it only requires one reading as an emergency ordinance. So all those in favor of extending the business license deadline to waiving of the late fees associated with city business license permits through June the 30th, 2020. All those in favor say aye. Mr. Matney,
Aye.
Ms. King,
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma,
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. So majority carries. It's unanimous. This is forward with the emergency ordinance extended.
I'll pass this to someone else, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
You're on a roll, Mr. Rupp. And we are giving it to Consideration Action GCRA. This is coming out of Economic Planning and Development. Mr. Matney.
Thank you, Mayor. This is simply to renew our contract partnership with Greenville County Redevelopment Authority. And I would move that council reauthorize the 3-year annual contract.
Motion to authorize the signing of 3-year renewal for the GCRA partnership. Formal motion, Mr. Matney, is there a second?
Second.
We got a second from Ms. King. Any discussion? Mr. Matney, Ms. Kuzma, Mr. Reynolds is good. Ms. Kuzma is good.
I'm good, thank you.
All right, this has come up because this was signed prior without action by council. So when it came up again, Mr. Madden and I had a discussion on that. It felt it definitely should be before this council body to approve yea or nay on this. So we will vote to sign the new 3-year renewal. So all those in favor, aye. Mr. Madden,
Aye.
Ms. King,
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma.
Aye.
Mayor votes aye, so 5-0 majority. We will review that. Move forward. That was a new agreements with all women. Demolition services, EP, back to you, Mr. Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. On March 4th, the city issued an RFP for demolition and disposal services for specific city-owned buildings within the city center multi-county industrial park area. Complete Demolition Services was selected as the most responsive and lowest bid. And at this time, I move that council award the bid to Complete Demolition Services LLC and authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with the awarded bidder contingent upon legal review.
I have a motion from Mr. Mackey. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. King. Any discussion? Thank you, Ms. King. Good. Mr. Reynolds?
Good.
Ms. Kuznar?
I'm good, thank you.
And I am good. Call for a vote on this motion. Oh, Mr. Madden, sorry.
I just want to clarify one thing, Mr. Staff. The funding source that we have identified following the committee meeting, taken out of EPD committee meeting, the funding source would be the property management.
Property management. Good, thanks, sir. All right, the motion and second to proceed with the demolition as outlined in the acceptance letter as recommended by the staff. For us, all those in favor, aye. Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. So 5-0 to proceed with the demolition. Moving forward. Great. Okay, item 8M, consideration action on Bridges Road traffic study, also from EPD. Mr. Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. As we know, construction at Bridgeway Station has started, and as that area develops, we're going to see significant increase in traffic coming off of 385, as well as the traffic that utilizes Bridges Road. For those of us who have had the advantage of looking at overhead aerial shots, we have seen that every interchange from downtown Greenville to Harrison Bridge Road has been improved over the years, except for Bridges Road. So this agenda item simply calls for a traffic study to be done for Bridges Road at I-385, and I would move at this time that we fund the scope of services from Sprague and Sprague in the amount of $18,000, utilizing current MSIP funds on hand, and knowing that Hughes spent 21, almost 22,000 in their initial study. But anyway, I move that we fund the scope of services from Sprague and Sprague in the amount of $18,000, utilizing current MSIP funds on hand for the traffic study.
Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, from Mr. Reynolds. Any discussion?
I've just got one request, Mr. Mayor, that the total in the bottom paragraph on page 113 of the agenda, that the total cost of the study shall not exceed 18,600 rather than
Yes.
should not exceed.
I would like to amend my motion for not to exceed 18.6.
Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Mr. Reynolds. All right, change the motion will proceed with Mr. Hughes' advisement that we be sure to say that it should not exceed $18,600. That's the figures I see on page 113. Any other discussion? Ms. Kuzma.
I have a question.
Ms. Kuzma.
So there were some other suggestions on here, offer a 50-50 cost sharing. Is that something that we were gonna look at, or just go ahead and pay the 18, not to exceed 18.6?
Okay, question, I think Mr. Matt, you probably want to handle that. I think that did come up as discussion.
It did come up as discussion, and the motion is still for 18.6 from the city.
From the city. So.
And remember too, that's coming from MSIP funds. That's not coming from general fund dollars. That's not coming from anything except for the multi-county industrial park that Bridgeway Station will serve.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manning.
Thank you, Ms. Kuzma. Hearing no discussions, we're ready for a vote on that. The motion that we proceed with the Franklin study from funds for the MSIP funds on hand not to exceed $18,600. All those in favor, aye. Mr. Matley?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. So we 5-0 to proceed with the traffic study. Mr. Matley? One was all in. All right, the next 4 items are coming to us from the committee as a whole. I would entertain a motion, if somebody would like to make one, that we consider the next 4 items, N through N, O, P, and Q as committee as a whole. We'll have a motion.
So moved.
Motion from Mr.
Second.
Matley, and I have a second from Ms. King that we are in committee as a whole. Consider first item is action, item N, consideration and action on fiscal 21 budget ordinance. I'll defer that to Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On her birthday, I'm sure Holly would love to have a first reading for the 2021 budget. One quick explanation before we start this. This will actually be 4 separate ordinance readings. So we have to have an ordinance for each bond that we're asking to issue from our budget. So there'll be, after the budget ordinance and vote, we'll also have a general obligation bond ordinance, a third supplemental ordinance, which is the hospitality and tax revenue bonds, and then also the IPRP ordinance. So to kick off the festivities, I would like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve on first reading the 2021 budget as presented.
Second.
Second.
Yeah, Ms. King and Ms. Kuzma, both second. Ms. King was at first. Any discussion on the first reading of the fiscal year 2021 budget ordinance?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
One of the items that's in the budget is we had it budgeted for a part-time person in community development. And as we know, there have been some staffing changes. And with all that community development has going on, we need additional hands. Part-time simply will not fill the bill for what all needs to be done. So at this time, what I would do is move to amend the FY 2021 budget to appropriate $39,313 from the H&A fund balance to fund a full-time event coordinator position for the Community Development Department. And if we can get a second, then I can give a little additional explanation.
Okay, I have a proposed amendment from Mr. Matney to amend the FY 2021 budget to allocate, I missed the second part, 39,000 and something.
$39,313.
$313 from H&A fund balance to fund a full-time person for the event coordinator in our culture center area.
Correct.
Is there a second?
I'll second for sake of discussion.
Yeah, a second from Ms. King. Now we're open for discussion on the amendment for the funding of a full-time person to help with event coordinations in the culture in economic development.
Mayor, if I could.
Ms. Rath.
So roughly the starting range for a full-time event coordinator would be between 32 and 37. And if we use a starting salary of 35, the total cost for a full-time event coordinator would be 57,813. That includes FICA, retirement, and insurance. Right now, the FY 2021 budget includes 18.5 for a part-time event coordinator position. So by simply moving 39,313 from the H&A tax fund, we can hire a full-time person in this budget year. Now, this would only be for FY 2021. In future budget years, the position would be funded out of recurring revenues. But that's kind of an explanation. And it's just at the point where with some of the staffing issues that we're dealing with, we will lose programming if we do not have a full-time event coordinator in this position.
Thank you, Mr. Patney. Ms. King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not 100% opposed, nor am I 100% on board. What I would like to see is for this to go back to committee to discuss June 1st prior to second reading, and perhaps addressing the same issue second reading. I would need some further input from staff before I can comfortably commit to the funds and the position.
Thank you, Ms. King. Mr. Reynolds?
I actually agree wholeheartedly there, Mr. Mayor. I think one of the concerns without getting it too strung out here, I would have to add is we don't know exactly, while I don't disagree with needing an event planner in that department, we don't know exactly what event planning is going to look like for our city in the next couple of months anyway. So jumping all in and going to a full-time employee has some concern for me anyways, but I would support what Ms. King is asking for.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Ms. Kuznar?
No discussion.
Thank you. From my standpoint, I agree with all of you. The future of what we've got planned for our city, the economic development that is headed up, and the programming we have done has been phenomenal. And we've run a very, very tight ship, and we've had people that have burned it big time. So I understand the need there. But I'm also with Ms. King as far as we're in an unsettled time right now, and there may be forces outside of programming that determines what we do or do not do in the future, next 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is in this unsettled time. So I would think this, there's time to let the committee discuss that between first reading and second reading, if the first reading passes tonight, to see exactly where we stand on that, because I think there's various options that the committee would consider from that standpoint. So that's my discussion. So we'll go back again. Is there any additional discussion? Mr. Matney, any?
No, Mayor.
Anyone there? Ms. King, you okay?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Kuznar, good?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. So the motion to amend, the amendment is before us to approve the full-time position for event coordinator utilizing $39,330 from H&A fund balance to create a full-time fund. That is an amendment. Those in favor of the amendment, say
I think I need to rescind my amendment if I'm going to be able to offer it again. If this is going to be discussed in committee, for me to offer the amendment again, I need to go ahead and rescind it because we can see what the votes are going to be. So if it loses, I don't know that I could make the identical amendment on second reading if we take a vote on it tonight.
okay. I would defer to Mr. Hughes on that matter. If the amendment approved or disapproved tonight, could it come up again on second reading for the same ordinance as an amendment?
Understand it, Mr. Matney wants to rescind his motion to amend the ordinance. Is that correct?
Well, I guess his concern is if the motion to amend fails tonight, could it come up again on second reading or with the exact same motion, or would it not be allowed?
Yeah, I think I probably agree with Mr. Matney that he should, if he can rescind it so that he can re-raise it before second reading at the next council meeting.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Hughes. What's your pleasure, Mr. Matney?
To rescind the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Matney. We'd like to rescind the motion. There was a second by Ms. King. Are you okay with this?
Yes, sir.
Ms. King concurs with that, so we will rescind the amendment. So we are now back to the original motion from Mr. Reynolds to approve the FY 2021 budget ordinance workshop. Any discussion on the original motion? Matney, you good? Ms. King? Reynolds, Ms.
No,
King?
no discussion, but just I do want to tell Mr. Matney, I appreciate his passion for this position. Certainly look forward to discussing it in committee.
Okay with that. Ms. Kuzma, anything?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, and then we're ready for the vote on the first reading of the budget ordinance of 2021 as submitted. All those in favor, aye. Mr. Matney,
Aye.
Ms. King,
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma,
Aye.
and Mayor votes aye. So the 2021 budget ordinance on first reading is approved by vote. I think the second ordinance, general obligation bond goes back to you, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I stated earlier, this is going to be in accordance with the budget that was just passed on first reading. I'd like to make a motion that we approve on first reading the general obligation bond ordinance. As presented in your packet.
I have a motion from Mr. Reynolds. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. King. Any discussion concerning the general obligation bond ordinance?
Can you defer to Mr. Madden to make sure that I's are crossed and T's are dotted?
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, too. If, not too much to ask, that we read the ordinance title on page 122.
Yes, sir.
Just so it's clear, on what's being issued and the amount.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. I will do so. An ordinance to provide the issuance and sale of not exceeding $3 million, City of Malden, South Carolina General Obligation Bonds, Series 2020, to prescribe the purposes for which the proceeds shall be expended to provide the payment thereof and matters relating thereto. Do I need to rescind my motion and reread that in the form of a motion?
No, I think.
Okay, thank you, just for. Yes, sir, thank you.
All right. Any discussion, Mr. Madden? Mr. Matney, sorry. None. Ms. King, good. Mr. Reynolds,
Thank you,
Ms.
Mr. Mayor.
Kuzma.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, I'm good. Okay. All those in favor of the motion for the general obligation bond ordinance? Say aye. Mr. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. So 5-0 carries for the general obligation. Back to you, Mr. Reynolds, on the next.
All right, this is, would you direct me to the page? If I'm going-
174.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt on first reading the third supplemental ordinance provided in your packet. Third supplemental ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of not exceeding $2.9 million, City of Malden, South Carolina accommodations tax and hospitality tax revenue bonds in one or more series and other matters relating thereto.
I have a motion to accept the third supplemental ordinance as submitted. Mr. Reynolds, do I have a second?
Second.
A second, Ms. King. Any discussion on this one? Mr. Matney? Good. Ms. King? Mr. Reynolds?
Good.
Ms. Kuzma?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. I'm good. Okay, all those in favor of on first reading approving the third supplemental ordinance in combination with the tax revenue bond, say aye. Mr. Matt?
Aye.
King?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma?
Aye.
And the mayor votes aye. So that carries on first reading. Next one is the installment purchase revenue bond, IPRD ordinance. Mr. Russ.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Madden, would you find that page number for me?
188.
Thank you. There's 365 pages. All right, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we adopt on first reading the installment purchase revenue bond ordinance as presented in your packet, authorizing an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of documents relating to the provision of municipal facilities, consenting to and approving the issuance of a not exceeding $2.75 million Malden Public Facilities Corporation installment purchase revenue bond series 2020 by the Malden Public Facilities Corporation to provide funding to finance the cost of acquiring, constructing, renovating, equipping, and installing public facilities, consenting to and approving with the execution of a base, lease, and conveyance agreement by and between the City of Malden, South Carolina, and the corporation, consenting to and approving the execution of a municipal facilities purchase and occupancy agreement relating thereto by and between the city and the corporation, consenting to the form of an indenture to be entered into by the corporation and the purchaser of the bond, and making provision for all other matters relating to the foregoing. Glass of water, please.
The motion as presented by Mr. Reynolds. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. King. Any discussion on the motion of the IPRD ordinance? That any good? Ms. King, Mr. Reynolds,
Good. Thank you, Mr.
Ms.
Mayor.
Kuzma.
I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
And I'm good. Call for a vote on the first reading of the installment purchase revenue bond on the IPRD ordinance. As presented by Mr. Reynolds, second by Ms. King. All those in favor? Aye. Mr. Matt.
Aye.
Ms. King.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma.
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. So the ordinance on first reading is approved as submitted. Back to you, Mr. Reynolds, on, I think it's page 235.
Thank you. Mr. Madden, is this, I was understanding we only had to do the 4 issuance there. Am I missing? Those are all approved in the IPRD. Okay,
My bad.
that is totally fine.
The other 3 in our outline are actually
Approved
in
in
the
the
IPRD
IPRD.
ordinance, which you
Yes.
just.
But someone else was gonna have to read for me. Thank you.
All right, so we took care of all the items under 8N, so we're good. So we'll move on to, we're still in the committee of the whole, consideration action on stormwater advisory committee. Page 288. Let me get to that since that's. All right. Okay, this came up as a part of the discussion through the various few years, and we've heard it again tonight with an item dealing with stormwater. There was a briefing not too long ago from our public works directors that tried to explain to us what we fully understand where various legal counsel is coming from on the stormwater permitting fee kind of thing, and all of that's I discussed, but we are a co-permittee with the Greenville County for stormwater management. A lot of things that go on inside that, but basically we defer to them to overlook any stormwater issues we have with new developments and all that. And on your tax bill, there is a county stormwater fee, roughly certain millage for the value of home. Let's round off, say it roughly $25 a year kind of thing. That goes directly from your taxes to the Greenville County. The city of Malden does not collect one penny of that money. So we do not collect money for stormwater fees within the city of Malden. We're running into issues that are continuing to crop up, especially in our, what I call the four corner neighborhoods, the ones that are older, built in probably the 60s, with a different set of rules and a different set of guidelines and a different way of doing things. But in the recent last 14, 15 years, it's become clear with the various government agencies that got involved in this. A lot of requirements is there's a different way of looking at stormwater. We're constantly getting questions and asking for help to mitigate some of the problems with that. And with all that being said, I would propose for this council to consider, as authorized under City Ordinance 2-31, the appointment of special committees. And all special committees shall be appointed by the mayor unless a vote is called for by one member of the council, in which case the special committee in question shall be elected by a majority vote of the mayor and council. In my discussions with our administrator, it was my desire that this come before this full body of council, and I would ask us to consider the appointment of a special committee, and for lack of a official title that I am calling it the Stormwater Advisory Committee. The purpose of this committee would be the city of Malden continues to receive inquiries, concerns, and expectations as to stormwater runoff occurring across many areas within the corporate city limits. This committee will provide a focus area to quantify citizens' input to assist city council and staff with developing a path forward. I would suggest we consider a committee of 10 to 12 people at the most. We would have a city of Malden council representative. We would have a city of Malden Public Works representative. There is a gentleman who lives in our community. It has more than 30 years experience with stormwater management, as well as boots on the ground of how to address some of those issues, as well as well versed in the requirements from different federal agencies, state agencies, county agencies in doing that. So I would ask this council to authorize the appointment of a stormwater advisory committee. All the members would be nominated and then approved by this council to sit on that committee, and then we would charge them with a time period of being optimistic 3 to 6 months to have quantified and understood the stormwater legal side of it, and then come back with us with quantified issues, concerns, different methodologies to address that, and bring that back to our staff, and then bring it before us for us to consider, hopefully in the future, of providing a path forward, addressing the stormwater continuing growing issue within the corporate limits of the city of Malden. So that's in the form of a motion to this council to consider appointing this special stormwater advisory committee. So that's a motion from me. Do I have a second to the motion?
Second.
Second. Mr. Reynolds, any discussion? Again, we're rather in the discussion. Mr. Matney?
Sorry about that. I guess I'm just trying to get a handle on why council needs to form a special committee. I think that if you're looking for an advisory group, because nothing about this committee would have any real decision-making ability under the city's ordinances. I think if you specifically are looking for some guidance, it could be an informal advisory group that you set up as an individual, and try and pull some of this information together from the groups and the stakeholder, or the people in the stakeholder groups that you're trying to hit. I'm just trying to figure exactly why council needs to establish another committee, especially at a time when we're having difficulty getting people to serve on the committees that we already have. The zoning board, the planning commission. I mean, it's always difficult to get applicants for those positions. And I'd hate to dilute the pool even more. I'm just thinking out loud.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Madden. Mr. King?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Matney. I'm trying to wrap my head around it as well. I think it's, in theory, a great idea. I'm just wondering if it's, not something that we need to vet at the committee level and then kind of understand what our ultimate goal is. You did a great job, Mr. Mayor, explaining your thoughts behind it and what you would perceive it to be. I would just like the opportunity to have that same conversation with the committee and then decide if it's something worth moving forward with at this point in time. But I'm not opposed to the idea. I just need to have a little bit of talk, discussion, I think at the committee level, and then move forward if need be. Again, that's, I guess I'm talking out loud too, thinking out loud.
If I may ask a question, you were talking about, would this need to be discussed in which standing committee?
Public Works.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. King. Mr. Rose?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have a problem with either one of those, Mr. Mayor. Serving on the Public Works Committee, I wouldn't mind seeing this back there. Not to talk about it more, but I certainly support the committee and what you're trying to do. It's a great idea, and it's a good idea to move forward. It would not hurt my feelings to do it tonight to talk about it, but if there is general concern, then I would have no problem either sending it back to committee and bring it back out. But it is certainly something I support, and you and I know from being on the street so much, it is a topic of discussion. So we'll continue to have until we do something to address it. I think this is a great report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Ms. Kuzma?
Well, I think that maybe a committee would be good. We have a lot of stormwater issues, and there are a lot of knowledgeable residents in Malden with the stormwater experience that maybe we could get advice from. So I think that having a committee would probably be good, and because it affects a lot of the residents in the city, I think we would have more to choose from than we do on planning commissions and things like that.
Mr. Mayor, how many members of the committee? I'm sorry.
Ms. Kuzma, you good? Back to Mr. Matney, any additional thoughts?
I like the thought of sending it to PW for the Public Works Committee to vet. I think that it probably needs to be fleshed out a little more with all of the agenda items that we've considered tonight. Aside from the introduction sheet, we've got page after page after page of supporting material. This one, I think, is an idea that needs to be examined, but I think it's still an idea that needs to mature a little bit, and I'd like to see it go to PW.
Ms. King?
I would like to add, I definitely think it needs to be in PW, but I'm not so sure that finance shouldn't be involved at some level as well. I have spoken in the past of stormwater fund within the city. We're not at the point now to even, obviously, we're getting ready to, we just voted on the first reading for the upcoming fiscal year, but perhaps not initially, but at some point, the finance committee may need to be involved just to look at possible funding sources as well.
Burns?
Nothing else, Mayor. Thank you.
That's good.
I don't have anything further. Thank you.
From my standpoint, just to be sure, clarified it in case, there's misconfusion. This is not the creation of a new standing committee. This is just an advisory committee that will meet informally to bring ideas back. And the idea was for this group of people to quantify it in such a way that they would bring it back to a standing committee like the PW committee to fully go through everything like that. I do not think you will find any cross boundary lines of those serving on other standing committees, boards and commissions that have expressed an interest in this type of thing. You know, could I have done it? I think so, but I didn't want to do it that way. I wanted it to be a council consensus type thing. So I don't see a lot of overhead or that, but the whole idea was for them to bring back ideas on how to approach it and possibilities of some simple solutions versus complex solutions. And part of their discussions would be to seek legal advice on the current standings on different things. Part of this committee would be an educational process that they would have to learn what the stormwater permitting is for a county of Greenville, as well as co-permitting for the city of Malden. That was part of their efforts also to establish more of an education process as the citizens they would talk to. I would expect members of this committee to be found from some neighborhoods throughout our city, including what I've always called the four cornerstone neighborhoods that started this city, and new ones, without calling them out. We've got stormwater. I've got the charts in my office, and I'd love to show it to you guys who want to come out there. City of Malden sits between two drainage basins, and everything's flowing downhill. And it's interesting to see that some neighborhoods aren't as down the hill as I think they are, and others are down there. But the water is flowing, and we heard that. I've heard it for 5 years. So this was how the citizen advisory group shows that we are actively pursuing collecting the data and trying to quantify what it is that we can step up to and potentially help with. That was the whole idea behind it. It was never to be a long-standing committee that would have the overhead of our standing committee rules and things like that. So that's my reason for trying to move forward on just a multi-pronged attack from that. But the recommendations are that even opinions would come back to the PW committee as well. And if it involved funding, it would, of course, go through Mr. Madden, and then, of course, to the finance committee and any other committee he get it into. So that was kind of the reason behind that. Not a major deal one way or the other, but I'd like to see us move forward with the Stormwater Advisory Committee. Any other comments? Mr. Matney first, anything? Ms. King.
Again, I just like to clarify that I'm not opposed to it, but you just spoke for almost 5 minutes with all your thoughts, and I have one piece of paper that I got on Friday. So I think that if the rest of us are able to, perhaps at a committee level, could sit down and listen to what you just told us briefly, we could better understand and move forward with it. That's just where I am personally with it.
Okay. I don't have a problem with withdrawing my motion and making a presentation to the committee that full documentation. Whatever the council wants to do. Go for a vote. Are you okay with rescinding it?
I believe you have that one, Mayor.
Yes, seconds from you, if you're okay.
I'm okay with it.
And I will rescind this motion and defer this to add additional documentation and council processes in the next month's public works committee meeting. Hopefully more face to face and not in a situation we're in today. That's okay with the group. I will forward that to the PW. is concerned, and no action needs to be taken tonight. Next item on the agenda is consideration of ordinance creating Indigo Point Sewer Pump Station. It was committee to hold that. Would probably go to building code. Ms. Kuznar, you want to hold that?
Okay. All right, so this is first reading to approve an ordinance creating the Indigo Point Sewer Pump Station fee. The fee is approximately $135. That'll be added to tax bills just once a year. And the subdivision's not completely finished yet. Staff recommends the council give first reading approval of the ordinance. So I'll make a motion to approve this on first reading.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
Second. King, motion for us to approve on first reading orders creating the Indigo Point Sewer Pump Station fee. Any discussion? Mr. Madden? Ms. King?
No.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Kuzma, good. Nothing. All those in favor of approving the ordinance creating the Indigo Point Sewer Pump Station, please say aye. Mr. Madden?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds?
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma?
Aye.
All those aye, so 5-0 approved on first reading. Okay, consideration action on recreational programming, page 310. Mr. Rose, you have.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As you can see in the memorandum that Mr. Madden has provided, we're starting to see the COVID crisis come to an end. We're seeing trending markers in a direction that's obviously positive for the city and well, the country as a whole. But as we start everything and bring back non-essential employees and do that, and the question asked about the recreational programming, specifically baseball, softball, things like that. I think as I can gather, the staff would like to have some direction from council on what their thoughts are on resuming the baseball and softball programs within the recreational department. So I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to advise staff to resume our recreational program as pertained to the memorandum in your packet.
Motion is to move forward with the baseball, softball programs according to the page approach.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion from Mr. Reynolds. Is there a second? Second from Ms. King. Any discussion? We'll start around the table. Mr. Madden.
Yeah, this is really for Mr. Madden. You know, having looked over the memos. So what date would we be looking at? Because I think that's, you know, we're talking about, we're referencing memos here, and the memos are things that the public don't have at their disposal. So, you know, we know that there are a lot of players that want to get back into the swing of things, pardon the pun. There are a lot of coaches that want to get back out there. People are trying to get back to normal as quickly as possible. So what are we looking like genuinely for a date for those team sports to reopen?
Mr. Madden, members of council, internally in discussions with recreation staff, should council vote tonight to resume the baseball, softball seasons, staff is prepared to begin as soon as the day after Memorial Day, I think it's the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. Madden.
Thank you, 26th?
May 26th.
So we got Mr. Matt. Ms. King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know the motion was for recreation and baseball, softball, but are we going to discuss the sports center as well in a different motion, or is now the platform to address the other facilities within the recreation department, as in the sports center and the senior center?
I think what's before us tonight is only guidance for staff to proceed with recreational programming. Everything else is continuing in the phased-in approach as submitted from Mr. Madden on memorandum 4.1 and 5.1. It's my understanding, is that correct?
Actually, yes and no. So what's being requested is direction for recreational programming to include youth sports and sports center. And the sports center.
Open the sports centers included in that project. That's correct. So that would be like summer program that will come, summer camps and things like that.
Yeah. Yes, right now the staff is prepared to proceed with summer camp starting June 8th. And the same with opening the sports center.
Still your motion. Mr. Reynolds.
I think in my mind, what I want to make sure, and I would express this to Mr. Madden, is making sure that youth sports specifically are getting out there and playing ball. As we're looking at the different ways that we can address and understand together. Policies to make sure that we're being as safe as possible, and we're also playing outside sports. So in my mind, that's what my motion was for. And I think as presented, I would not change it, would rescind it or change it there.
Ms. Kuzma. Thoughts, discussion?
Okay, so, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you're saying May 26th, next week?
Yes, excuse me. Since the beginning of the month, recreation staff has been working diligently to make sure that staff is prepared to resume the baseball season when that time comes, making sure that the schedules are coordinated in a way that practices can commence without delaying it any further, should council want to proceed. So the staff is prepared, and at this time, it's just getting direction from council.
Mr. Madden, does my motion provide enough direction?
26.
I did want to also point out there are a couple of other. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be quiet now.
Sorry, this only be sure, Ms. Kuzma, was that your question was answered?
I think so. I'm having trouble hearing. It's kind of going in and out. So staff is going to be prepared to open up everything on May 26th as far as baseball and softball. Is that what I heard?
Yes, staff will be prepared.
He said yes.
Okay, so so signups have to start, or have they already done signups, and when is the season going to start?
Yes, Ms. Kuzma, they have. I'll ask Recreation Director Mark Compton if he can provide some thoughts just on the kind of the details behind it.
Thanks, Kuzar. Yes, like the city administrator said, we're going to start practice May 26th. Then the season will start the following week, June 1st. We've had signups. Majority of the teams have their jerseys. We practiced already for 2 weeks until we shut down. So I have gotten numerous calls about what we're going to do, but we need some guidance from the mayor and council, on what direction, with that. So if that's actually the question, we won't start playing until, June 1st. That's a Monday night.
Okay, what about concession stands and restrooms?
Yes, ma'am, we will not have concession stands. We will advise parents not to use bleachers, to bring their chairs. We'll have to get with Public Works to see if we can remove those bleachers because people will probably still sit on. But we will remove all bleachers, and bathrooms. We have gotten some prices on. Public Works is very stretched out with their staff right now. So we've gotten 2 quotes on cleaning bathrooms on a daily basis, 7 days a week.
Okay. I think I'm just concerned. Malden has been relatively spared from COVID. But every day, it seems like more cases are coming up in Greenville. So I'm just kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm just being a little more cautious, not really knowing how to go with this.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
Thank you.
Mr. Mattingly? Nothing. Ms. King?
I would just like to add that y'all know me, I'm a numbers person. And because of that, I have found it very interesting to track the cases. I think, yes, Ms. Kusar, the cases are increasing, but so is testing. So therefore, that kind of justifies why those numbers are going up. The trajectory is actually, as of today, at 2.7%. And correct me if I'm wrong, but when COVID first started, the goal was to keep that below 10%, and we're at 2.7% today. I say play ball. Vitamin D is good. Our neighboring cities are starting their programs back up. We have a wonderful reputation in the city of Malden for our recreation department, and I just think we need to give those children and those parents who are comfortable with letting their kids play, let them play. It's a choice. Some will probably choose not to play this season and sit it out, and that's okay. But I have confidence that we can take all the necessary precautions to move forward. And with the data that I'm looking at, I feel comfortable with us playing ball.
Ms. King? Mr. Rose?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You can tell Ms. King had a kid who played baseball. She's coming from the school of thought, rub dirt in it and play ball. And I certainly come from that school of thought as well. I'm speaking from the point of having a baseball player as well as a kid who's been quarantined to his house doing nothing but schoolwork and video games for a month and a half. So as I look at it, I want the parents to have the most opportunity they can to get their kids out, get them exercising back into what I call some of the nicest parks in Greenville County. Ms. King alluded to it, that there are other facilities, other leagues that are starting up. I think Simpsonville as well as Greer, perhaps, Fountain Inn. I know that there's also been some talk with Greenville Little League. I serve on the board of directors of Greenville Little League as well. We have sent a letter to the county requesting field availability for our league to kick off. As I think about this issue, I think about the many 12U players in our rec program who don't get another shot to come back and play Malden baseball. And I want to give them an absolute best possibility to end their season in a positive way. There's been obviously things that they had absolutely zero control over. So I would certainly be on the school of thought of throwing dirt and play ball. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Ms. Kuzma? Any additional thoughts?
Nothing further, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I had quite a lengthy discussion today with staff concerning this issue because as a lot of us did when we got our packet on Friday, we probably have lost sleep over this issue. obviously, you tell me, look at me, I'm older, so my kids grew up and we rubbed a lot of dirt on a lot of things and moved on. This is an unsettled time. This is a different generation. There's probably 4 different generations looking at the same question, from children to grandchildren to great-grandchildren. Mr. Madden and I played devil advocate this afternoon, back and forth, and I put him on the spot, and he put me on the spot, and we're trying to figure out what we can do. Just give you some additional data that we have available to us as of today. Centerville Fountain Inn have decided to move forward. So they're playing ball starting, I think, next week. Greer has canceled their season. Greenville has canceled their season. There's pressure on us where they will not open the parks and allow other people to play. Good question. Don't know that. Colleges have canceled their season. Professional baseball has canceled their season. So at this point, the data doesn't show that we have a 7-day trend. I'm a data person. I've been tracking the daily reports we get from Mr. Madden. I've been charting those and doing it. And my chart said if I could eliminate Friday and Monday, I could show a downward trend. But for whatever reason, those 2 dates tend to spike and it drives the chart back up. It is not trending downward. The percentage of positive cases as a percentage of, that percentage does work, and you can take your math and optimate math to do a lot of different things. But from what we're seeing, the guidelines provided by the state, the chart is not level and it's not downward. It is still trending upward on that. So the discovery phase, more tests are being done, more positives are coming in. So we said, would you let your child play? Some that said yes. There's been some that said no. There are some that says, how do you sanitize the catcher's equipment and keep it sanitized from the time your child puts it on and after he's made 2 or 3 tags and out, and still say it's safe from another person who may or may not have been sanitized on that. How do you do social distancing with T-ball and up? 12U, yes. From that standpoint, no state, national parks and recreation is advising to continue with any sport program. So I saw this as a little bit different, and I guess the guidance that I was assuming we looked at is doing recreational programming and youth programming. Do we, baseball in particular? To me, it's a no-brainer today. If you said start up softball, football, basketball, lacrosse, any of them that have much more contact sports involved in it, I'd say no. Baseball's a different animal. I don't know. I've gone from cancel the season, let's move on, or take all the safety precautions we can, put up all the signs we can, tell mamas and daddies, you make the decision, and let them go with that. And if they back out, they back out. Then you got to realign your teams and try to come up with more teams or less teams. There are coaches that may or may not back out. So you've got to come up with more coaches. All this is the detail of the staff. I feel sure can step up to that. I got all the trust in our recreation staff. It's really a dilemma for me. At this point, I still can't tell you how I really feel about it. I leave a meeting and people who convince me, no, you should not go forward with the programming right now. And then I talked to some other people who rub dirt in it, let's go play ball. I'm not worried about my grandkids or your kids. I don't know about those kids over there. Don't know where they've been. Don't know where mom and dad has been. Don't know where grandparents have been. Don't know where grandparents is at high risk. Sometimes so I don't know. It's tough. I know I have to cast a vote tonight and guiding our staff and recommendation. It's the will of this council and the majority rule on that. So that being said, I'll hush. Is there any additional discussion? I'll go back again around Robin and seat one. Mr. Matt, any additional discussion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm certainly not going to take the view of rub some dirt on it and play ball because this is a very serious issue. And it's one that we've been dealing with for a while. And I don't think that we can be cavalier about it. I don't think that we can take it in a joking manner. I think that it is perfectly reasonable to be concerned for the health aspect of it. I think it's perfectly reasonable to be concerned from the mental health aspect as we have become so isolated and really removed from our friends and our neighbors. I think that it is perfectly reasonable for us to be concerned about the economic aspect of it. There is no right or wrong way to feel about this disease that we're dealing with right now. And none of us are infectious disease experts. None of us are epidemiologists, although everybody on my Facebook feed seems to be. I think that what we have to do, this meeting tonight started with a prayer, and it was a prayer for God to guide us and help us to make the right decision. And I think that that's what we have to do is trust in Him that we're going to make the right decision, because we don't understand what all this disease means. I think that we can't stay behind closed doors forever. But I think that we have to use our own common sense and take the precautions that we need to take. I think, and I will agree with you, Mayor, I think that if we were dealing with a close contact sport like lacrosse, which is near and dear to my heart, I would have a very difficult time right now saying, let's play. But baseball, softball, by their very nature, the majority of the time is very socially distanced. So with that, I would say that we're taking baby steps to reopen, and that this is a good step for us to reopen. Let's not cancel the season. Let's move forward in reopening our season. And if we see the trends move in a less than favorable direction, we can reverse course if we need to. But I think hope is something that's getting a lot of people through this time. And if we can move forward and show these young people, show these coaches that being outside is a good thing, let's move forward and employ best practices to keep everybody safe.
Thank you, Mr. Matney. Ms. King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was trying my best and I did not succeed to find a graph that I was looking at earlier today that basically had 2/3 of the cases are in the 71 and older age category in our state. The 2/3 was surprising to me. You hear who the high risk folks are. Again, I think we move ahead cautiously, as Mr. Matthews said, that things take a turn, then we can always stop the season, we can always reverse it, but I stand by what I said earlier. Just would love to see our families who choose to make that choice to play have that choice, that we have the program available for them. And we still need to talk about sports center.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King.
I'll be brief. Mr. Matney, I'm not quite used to having a microphone in my face anymore. So one of those things that I certainly hope my comments aren't meant to sound cavalier to the disease or the virus or anything like that. And I can certainly understand how that would sound. So, but I think one of the things I think about is the very fact that we have a number of us sitting in this room. We're starting to see the normalcy come back. We're starting to see the idea that we want to get to a sense of where we were and have still be thoughtful about how we're doing it. And I certainly, again, I support having our baseball players and play ball. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Ms. Kuznar?
Well, okay, so the governor is opening things up slowly. Our city is opening things up slowly. businesses are not back to normal. People are social distancing. I don't see, both of my children played baseball. So I know the importance of it, not only for the children, but for the families as well, and the coaches. And it's a hard decision for me. But on the other hand, I don't know how a team can stay 6 feet apart and the parents on the bleachers. There's a lot of people that attend these games. And I just think that we need to wait a little while longer and let this, let us see what's going to happen. Because, I mean, Ms. King, I understand, to get it all going together and Mr. Matney and see where it takes us. And then if we see that we're starting to get more cases, then we put the brakes on. Well, then it's too late. I mean, for the last probably week or so that I've been looking, Malden had 23 confirmed cases. That's low. And to keep it low like that, I think that we need to continue doing what we're doing, because all it's going to take is that 1 or 2 people to get it, and then Malden's infected, and then where do we, then what is going to happen? We're going to have to shut everything down again.
Thank you, Ms. Kuzma. I guess we all need to understand that Malden, the numbers that we're talking about, comes from 29662. That's just a portion of Malden. We have 29680, 681, 29605, 29607. If you look at those, there's a lot more cases than just 29662. Our youth program is open to in-city of Malden residents and out-of-city Malden residents. So there are out-of-city residents and children coming into our programs to play. So there's a caveat, one way or the other, as to what the numbers may or may not be. I don't know. I spent a lot of time reading the big words that Mr. Matney threw out, technology and all those kind of things. And there's experts throughout the world, and they all have different opinions, but we really don't know. I go to you, Mr. Reynolds. I use the term rub barrel to play, not being caveat, whatever it is, about any of it. It's a figure of speech to understand what we meant by that. There's no disrespect to anybody in as far as the seriousness of this. The seriousness of this disease is another topic of discussion. Everybody has different opinions, and that's all kind of theories out there. So I understand that. I understand the motion. Let me see if I got it right. We may need more discussion. Your motion is to move forward with youth programming. Now, that is a little bit more confined than the sports center area, because the sports center, as I understand it, has guidelines as issued by different organizations as to group fitness classes, how big they can be, and all the different things you can do. That fairly easy to control with the staff we have and the entrance way of getting into that. Baseball fields have a lot more entrances, and the staff we have to do the temperature testing and all the things y'all talk about. Staff says they can handle it one way or the other. They just need guidance from this council as should they move forward with youth programming. In my understanding, that's the motion before us, youth programming.
Yes, I think. just
Which right now
clarify,
is just baseball.
You split baseball, what we're talking about.
So with that being, if that's your motion,
That was my motion, Mr. Mayor.
we understand it, and that's what staff is asking for on moving forward. Youth programming, i.e. specifically baseball and softball. Okay, ball, yeah, okay, so do we move forward with that? So with that being defined, do we have discussion again? Back to you, Mr. Manning.
No further discussion at this time, Mayor.
Discussion, Ms. King.
No discussion, thank you.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Kuzma.
I just have one more thing.
Okay.
I personally know someone in their 30s who had COVID. They now have permanent lung damage. So it's not only the people who are in their 70s. It's affecting a lot more of the younger generation than we're probably aware of. If I didn't personally know someone, I would probably agree.
Thank you, Ms. Guzman. All right, so the motion forth, we're ready for a vote. Is should we direct staff to move forward with youth programming, specifically baseball, softball? No other comments? We'll roll call vote. Mr. Matt,
Aye.
Ms. King,
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Ms. Kuzma.
No.
Mayor votes aye. So 4-1, staff is directed to move forward with youth programming, specifically baseball and softball. All the stuff they gotta get it. All right, let's see. That's the last item on our published agenda. We're back to public comment. Is there any public still with us who would like to comment on anything that's near and dear to your heart? The microphones are at your discretion. You're open if you do. I'm sorry.
Still wanted to ask a question about the sports center. Do you want me to do that under?
Council concerns. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Back to, we're soliciting public comment. If you turn your mic on, just please state your name and your address, and try to hold your comments to 3 minutes or less. The mics are open. What's that song, Jeopardy? Hearing no public comment and seeing no one raise their hand or wave or yelling at Sergeant McCord, I will say public comment is none. We'll move on to council request. And I'll start with roll call, Mr. Matney.
Nothing this evening.
Thank you, sir. Ms. King.
I'll try to make this quick. So I was confused under the last agenda item that we had, because also in our packet, it has the phase 2 reopening of City Hall, recalling staff that, cultural center, sports center, and recreational programming, which we addressed recreational and youth sports. So I guess my question is, there's a, Mr. Madden alluded earlier that we're looking at the 8th for an open date for the sports center. Would that be the same date for the cultural center and bringing all employees back to City Hall?
The first week of June, is what we talked about. Pretty much bring everyone back. Public safety, City Hall, Culture Center. And so that's what we're looking at.
June the 8th for sports center. I thought I heard maybe 26th.
That's supposed to be baseball. Baseball practice.
Right.
And I would just add one thing. I know, it's youth programming, flag football is in that too. But baseball, so I just didn't want that to kind of hang out there and someone say, well, flag football. So it's in the same group and the same staff is prepared the same way for flag football.
So June 8th for the sports center, that will be opening the gym floor and the classes as well, or one, everything?
Everything, but there's some guidelines that we have to make sure
Right.
we meet with the gym, fitness classes, and also fitness floor. The sports center manager, Amanda Duffy, has already draft for Recreation Director Mark Cumberland and I to review on how those policies will look and how they'll impact staff. We've installed shield guards here in City Hall, in the BDS department, at the recreation, at the sports center as well. So it's just gearing up to start slowly bringing things back open, kind of resuming the way it was 2 months ago.
And the tracking's good. If staff's coming back first week of June, then that gives them the opportunity to get acclimated to the changes put in place, specifically at the sports center. So thank you for that clarification.
Just one quick comment, Mr. Mayor. As is a lot of government, there's much of it that goes unappreciated. When we're talking about this issue, I have to underscore the importance and how much I appreciate Mr. Madden's memorandum that he's been putting out in his office and how he's trying to attack this as the city leader, and as city administrator. But the sensitivity to what we're trying to deal with, the ability to try to balance staff, all the essential services, the non-essential services, and the thoughtfulness put into that. I, as a representative, but mostly as a private citizen, appreciate and wanted to put out there how much I appreciate the thoughtfulness put into your memorandums and how you're doing it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have.
Ditto.
Ms. Kuznar. Council concerns.
I do not have anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Senior Center. When will it reopen?
In talking with staff, that would be one of the last components that would reopen, and looking at the 1st of July, excuse me.
All right. Thank you guys for a long night and the long agenda. I think a lot of big progress was made, good discussions. I certainly appreciate you guys. Those that dial in as well as the ones that came tonight with social distancing. We're good. So I appreciate that very much. Next item is adjournment. What do I hear?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. King.
Second.
Second from Mr. Reynolds. All those in favor of adjournment, aye. Mr. Madden. There he is.
He says aye.
Aye. Thank you. Ms. King.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds. Ms. Kuzma.
Aye.
Aye. Mayor says aye. We are adjourned until we do this. Thank you.
Woo.
Thank you
All right,
so
sit.
much for.